Okay, so I hope that the technology now works and that you actually can hear me in the video in the end. So I wanted to start programming today, and I will talk very briefly about the technology we are using in the future. So I decided that we should use Django as a web front-end part thingy. So I will introduce you to this very briefly. So basically I just have my project, so my home directory here on a Linux system. And what I do first, I create just a project folder for our thing. And then I will go into this folder, and now I create a virtual env, because for Python we want to use a virtual env, so that we have the isolation for every of the libraries that we use. For example, also the Django library, which I'm introducing in a second. So I activate this virtual env by calling the activation script, and you see in the front here that now it's actually activated. So what we do next is we pip install pip first, I guess. So that's already updated. So let's continue with Django. So Django downloads 185 then. And then we look briefly in the tutorial, because I don't remember how to start stuff. But that would be it. So we basically do Django admin start project let's call it card game, so that we have like a working title for that. Oh, it's not a valid thing, so we just call it card game in this fashion. So now we have basically two folders in here: the game, which is the virtual env, and the card game folder. So when I go now in this card game folder, I have a card game and a manage.py folder. And in the card game, there is everything in that Django actually needs, like the settings and the URLs and so on and so forth. And let me just create another another shell here, so that we have like two things. And there will actually start PyCharm up now, because PyCharm is the development environment for Python. And while this is starting, I actually need to look how we actually start an application in this thing. And probably this will now stem our screen in a second. Creating, there it is. So Python manage.py startup, and then we have an application. So Python manage. Now this hits us, so let's move this down for now. Python manage.py, and then it was startup, and then we call it just let's call it registration, because that is the first thing that we actually want to do. So now we have another folder here, and now this comes up again. Skip this, cancel. So if you have any problems following because of the speed I'm having, then just pause the video or watch it over, because that's what you can do with a video. So let me shortly sort things out here, because I have like used PyCharm already, so it now of course tries to reload the stuff that I already had open. So, and it's very slowly reacting currently because it's loading stuff. Okay, so we now open this project that I just created, which is under my home folder, not in my master thesis, but in project. There it is. And then we have the card game thing, and that we open actually, and that we open in this window. So we get rid of this, what was actually in there in the beginning. And now we have our project open. There we can also see card game and registration. Now we have like a view folder here, and of course it now finds Django. It doesn't find Django, so we actually need to give it the information that it should use, not this Python version, but rather a specific Python environment. And this is where our virtual env comes in. So basically we now define the path to the virtual env, which these tools should actually use. And now it froze again a little bit, so that's really tedious to actually have this thing up and running until it's finally done. So bear with me for a second. Yeah, just go away. I will pause the recording for a second and be back when I actually... Oh no, now that's actually having... Now it's doing something, so let's try again. Home, my username, and it's loading the stuff. And let's type it here. Project. And then we are in the project, and then we have the game, because that is the virtual env, and then we have the bin folder, and there is the Python distribution which you actually want to use. So there you can see which libraries are now installed, and that's basic Django. That is fine, so that is what we actually want to use. And now the error message should actually go away, and that's perfect. So in this shell we have running PyCharm now, and in this shell I will now start up the server basically, because that's already working. So that's serving on my local computer on port 8000. So just let's create a new window here, isolate this. Yeah, fancy Pikachu. I can't get it away until it's loaded. Google the... Okay, now it should be faster. Okay, now I can actually isolate this window and move it down. So, hello, do something. And what is this? This is another window, and this is another window, and this is another window, so there were quite some windows open. Okay, but now we probably are good, so let's shortly see. Yeah, that's looks good. So we go on localhost because we are on our own machine, and port 8000. And what we see here is, okay, Django works. So now we need to actually program stuff, and for that I actually open a project that I actually have done before, which is probably in my repository folder, because we don't need to do work twice or 3 times. And there we have probably loot game. That should be it. Source, and let's just open this in a new window. And when this is opened, I will move this to the left as far as I try to do it, at least. Oh, now I probably moved. No, let's do it like this, and then we take it over here, because I don't want to have it in the focus right now. So there we actually have an application with a lot of stuff that I already did, and there needs to be somewhere the actual thing about login. So let's look at core, and then we have like a view, and then we have so much stuff, but there we have login and redirect, registration, index, and some checks, and we have also the registration. So basically let's just copy that over, because we probably need this anyway. So I copy this in here, and let me quickly, I will make, or that's probably too tiny, so yeah, but you can zoom in later on if you really want to know what's going on. So what's basically happening is now that we need to think about which URL should actually point to which thing. So what I wanted to start with now is just to make a very basic start page where there is actually stuff visible. And so on the root path I will just have a view. So views are basically the functions that are called when a user actually goes to the URL, and that will lie under registration dot views dot index, because that's or let's call it landing page, because that's basically the page where the people will end up first. So what we actually need to do here is we need a page that a view that is called landing page. I will get rid of this for now. And basically, oh no, I apologize, I probably need this. Yeah, because that is something that I need for now, so we can get rid of loggers for now. And if the user is logged in, we will deal with that later, but we need to import this thing because we need to import the response redirect. And if the person is actually not logged in, which is probably the case in the start, I actually want to create a request context where I actually put in the request, which is basically just a thing where already some stuff is put in, which is not of your concern right away. And now we have like this imported, and I will comment this out because we probably only need a little bit later, so that doesn't hurt us so much. And there, oh sorry, there is a comment in there, so it's a little bit freaked out right now. And there is another comment, so let's just get rid of this. And now it's all commented out. So basically, when the person gets on the slash, so on the URL, which is basically the slash, then we check if the user is logged in, or if the user is not logged in, we just render a specific template. And if I now switch to the browser and press update, then it didn't match. But if we put this in, no. Let me quickly check what I did in the other tool, because we have a URL file there too with a lot of stuff. So let's use this thing and check if this actually works if I put it into the URL, because that's always like a little bit more try and error. Okay, so basically it says now the index HTML does not exist, which is totally okay because we didn't put it somewhere. And I will get rid of this for now, and then I will just create a directory where we put our templates for now. And we go over to our other old application where we have somewhere the templates, and then we have an index page. So, and there's already something in there, so we basically copy this over, and then we create a new page here which says index.html, and it comes already with some stuff, but we just copy that and get rid of some includes, and let's get rid of JavaScript for now, and the version history we don't need it. Get rid of some footer stuff here and make it a little bit more pretty, because we have forgotten one div here. And yeah, let's get rid of this, and that looks actually pretty good. So let's check out what's actually happening. Still does not exist, and that is probably because our settings now don't know about this template folder. So let's check directories, and let's check first what I did actually in the other app. So that's an older version of Django, so I don't know if that's actually similar, but I guess not really. So it should actually work now, so I will try to figure this out, and then I will be back in a second. Okay, now I'm back actually, and I found out what the problem was. So I needed to move the first thing that I needed to do was to move this folder up to the actual project root, and what I also need to do is to put something in here, which is basically joining the base directory with templates, so that everything is basically in the templates folder there. And if we go over now and I press F5, then we actually see that there is something in there, but it doesn't look pretty. So what we're going to do is I propose that we actually use Bootstrap. So I go to Bootstrap in Google and we will find Bootstrap, which is a very popular framework, and I will go to the getting started side of this, because there we actually see stuff, and we have like also the CDN, which I just will now put in to our index page. So when I go to the index page, and of course we need more template hierarchy and stuff like this, but this should just give you a very brief idea of what will actually happen. Oh, we are already in the head, so just put this in there and make it a little bit more pretty and check if that's actually working. That's actually a lot better currently already. And also we get rid of our CSS file here, because if we need CSS we will just write it in the place here, but of course you should have a known file for this. So it looks a little bit better, but still we want to have like some things that are already taken care of. So let's just use a sign-in page like this. So we just look at the page code, and basically what we need is the body part. So just let's use this, and we will put this in actually in here, and then I will comment this out so that we actually can move the stuff over from one to each other. Nope, that needs this. And when we go to our own page, then we see we have already a sign-in thing. Of course it's like a little bit too large from the left hand side to the right hand side, but still we can just make a diff around this and put it like here. Let's remove this because we don't care about Internet Explorer, and we go put this a little bit more in, so check, and then we just create an in-place style here, which you should probably later on put in your own CSS file, because that is a pretty bad idea to do this. We also should put it like in the head section for now, and then we give it like an registration, and this should have like a width of, let's say 50%, and then we give this div an ID which says registration. And basically what should happen is, now that it doesn't work, so we need to also center this, margin 0 auto, and then it actually should be centered again, but 50% for some reason didn't work. So let's try 40%, and this still is not really working, and I don't know exactly why. But anyway, so let's not care about the styling for now, but rather we need to actually put this in here somewhere. So it needs to go into the form, because that is basically now template rendering. So when Django actually gets the request, then this template gets rendered, and then it replaces some things, and one of this is the CSRF token, which is the cross-site request forgeries thing, which basically says, oh, are you actually a page that I served, or are you a fake page? So that we need to include there. And we probably also need to put in where the form actually goes. So we copy this from there and say to the form, please go to login user. So when we now press F5 here, and then we want to like fill something out, some dummy stuff, and then we press login, and then it says, oh, login user is not there. So we basically need another endpoint where the request is actually ending up, and this will be something like login user, and this will be login. So this is basically just login, not registration right now, but we can easily modify it in a later step. So basically we want to have something like this now, and this is currently that was the comment from before, which I now remove. This I remove, and then we have like login and redirect. But let's assume that we don't make like credential check right now. So basically just get to a welcome page here when we logged in. And we also want to, of course, have the request context. So we copy that here and put it over here. And the welcome page, now we need another thing that is called a welcome page.html. Okay, so we have a page, and this just says now congrats, you are logged in. I probably misspelled this, but anyway. So I resent this URL, this thing, and now it says, oh, it doesn't work. So let's check if we actually put the URLs right. So let's get rid of this and check it again. It's still not working, so let's get back. I need to enter a password, and still not working. So what was the problem? I guess it needs to be like this, I guess, and view does not exist. So basically it found the URL now, but the login view actually doesn't exist. So let's call this login user. Go to our views, and this is called login user, so that now should actually work. And now it says multi-value dict key error, and I have no idea what that means, but I will look that up and then be back in a minute. Okay, so I probably know what the problem is. So in the post request, that should not be called user, so we call it username. And let's look at the index where the people actually log in, how it's actually called, because there it is called input email and password, but there are no names in it. So let's just look at the request, what actually comes up when we just go here. So we just print the request dot post request, because it's a post request, and then let's just press F5, so it's getting back, and it's giving us the error message again. And then we see our query dict actually doesn't have something like this. But actually we don't care about this right now, so I just will comment this out, and let's try if that works now. And then it says congrats, you're logged in. And that is basically the thing for the logging in part. And of course we want to also be able to register ourselves. So I go back to the index page. Oops, sorry, it's just a slash. We'll make this beautiful more in the future, but I don't want to spend the time on this now. So that's just a signing in. And let's just skip the complete registration and stuff like this. And we now actually build our landing page, because that is much more interesting. And what we actually want to have at the welcome page is the character selection, basically, but only if the user actually logged in the first time. So what we actually need to do is that we have some models or some database representation, somewhere we will store all the stuff that we want to have later. So I will briefly talk about the model thing in Python, in Django in the backend. So therefore we basically look at our design document, and we like have character cards, and if we want to propose characters to the actual players, we probably need them somewhere stored in the database. So what we start now is we have like a models file, and then we will create a class, and this class will be called available starting characters. That should models dot model, and I copied this now. So what actually this thing should have is it should have a name. So models dot char field, and this has I guess it had a max length, which is, let's say, 30 characters. And then we have, of course, other stuff. So we have, let's look back, we have the strength and intelligence. Let's just call it strengths and intelligence, and those things, of course, are integer fields. And I make a short break. So sorry for this short interruption. And where were we? Strength. So that is basically an integer field, and yeah, we just define it like this. And also the intelligence should be modeled like this, and we have some more of this, and that is basically the swiftness, diplomacy, and militance. So swiftness, diplomacy, and one more, that is the militant value. So, and we have some of those, but we will not create them here, because actually what Django supports is an admin interface where you actually can create stuff like this. And I will shortly register this model, and I hope that this works as straightforward as I saw. I think it does. And register, and then I have something like how did I call it now? Available starting characters. Available starting characters. So, and F5, and now we just go to admin. And we have an admin overview. But we need a super user for this. So I just stop the server for a second and run python manage.py create super user, I guess. And now it says me, oh, we have no tables at all to do this. So what I need to do first is actually to create tables. I think in Django version it's called like migrate, so that now creates like tables and stuff. And you also see that it actually didn't, probably. Did it? I don't know. Let me check that for a second. Do we have this app registered? No, we don't have it. So what we need to do to actually tell Django to actually use our app that we wrote, so registration. Nope, only once. And now we do the migrate again, and now it says creating table, registration, available starting characters. So now we can actually create a super user because of the out part from the run before, and then I just create, guess the password, a super user, and then I start the server again. So now we're back here, and then I just log in. And as you see, you don't see much. And let me check why you don't see much, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, I'm back, and I probably found out what the problem was. So actually we need to call admin.site.register, and there we put our available starting characters. And I also tried this, so I get rid of this and get rid of this import, and then we check if our server restarted. Perfect. And then we go back to the site, and there we have now our available starting characters. And then we can just add one, and there we say now from our document, which said merchant and strength 3 3688 3688, and militancy was 2 because war is never good for trade. So we save this and we basically have now an object in it. And what we basically want to build later on is, oh, that's the wrong application, that we want to build later on is actually when the player registered and they get on the welcome page, we actually want to let them choose a character. So let's just rename this for now to character choosing, because then we have it in later state also already at this, and then we make a character choosing HTML. And from now on nothing should have changed. So basically when we go to localhost 8000, we are at our index page probably. Now it says no because it's not redirected properly. That's weird. Probably because we are logged in here, so I will log out now and check if it works then. Yes, then we are actually there. So because that's like a different user thingy. So let's go to the login request, I guess was it called, login user. Yeah, that should actually redirect us later on to another page, but let's now state like this. So basically, oh no, let's do it in the right way. So we have a function that is called character choosing, and this gets a request, of course, and of course we also want to have like a request context. And basically here we want to return HTTP response redirect, and we want to be redirected to character choosing. So about the naming of the URLs we can like talk later on it, and then we of course need another thing here that now maps to character, yeah, I guess I call it the same, character choosing. So basically this now redirects us simply to character choosing. And what we now want to do is we want to actually get all the available starting characters dot all, and just want to all characters, and want basically to present them to the user. So we basically say in our request context, which is basically just a dictionary, we just say choosable characters is equals to all those characters. So now we basically, oh, I probably should write like this, doesn't it? Spelling change to, yeah, whatever, we just write like this now. And now the template actually comes into play, where we can actually say do something like, okay, for every character in the choosable characters, we actually, and if and for, of course, we actually want to show them a little bit. And we said that we want to present them as like booster packs or something like this. So I basically, no, I want to go to this page. I just want to reuse this code for now. So I check back the page code and I will copy all of this thing. So basically I will copy that over here and then restructure this a little bit. So we have like a lot of CSS that we just leave like this, and we get rid of this, and then we have like our SVG container, and I actually don't know if that works if that is out of there, so I just put it in here right now and get rid of the style thing here, and then we just check if I am on the page, if that actually works. So yeah, so basically I have now one character here, and that is now a little bit screwed from the points of like formatting, but that shouldn't be so bad, so just bear with me a second to actually get this right. So we move that a little bit in, and basically we have now one card, and this card actually, this thing here, we actually, let me check, no, that is the complete container, so we get rid of basically all of this because we don't have anything like this. So this is now the actual representation of the card. So we put it into the for loop, because now basically this is as often rendered as many characters as we have. So basically when I say okay, I want to have this rendered right now, that actually works. So, and now we actually replace the text for the card title, which related like the package name of the booster pack, which represents the character. That now should actually be the name that we entered, and that I guess the name that we entered in the model, and that is referred as name. So what we basically do now is we call it like character dot name, and we of course need two of those. Now I probably character, that should be it. And if I press F5, we have like a merchant here. And if I go back to the admin page and log in again, again with my fancy highly secured username and password, and I go back here and I add another thing that will be, let me check our design document. So we basically have like a soldier, check, and I copy this over, and that was like 55538, and soldier, how is soldier actually written? That is the right thing. So now we create this character, or save this available character, and now I press F5 and we have another thing that is called a soldier. Perfect. So, but now we have of course the problem that they are like below each other, and I actually don't want this. So I open my, not the full screen, my web development Firebug helper, and see such an SVG container. And the SVG container, just defined here, has a width of 20%. But let's make this 100% so that we actually have like an SVG container. And let's surround this thing with a div, which basically just says that is the area for the choosable characters. So we call it choosable characters. And inside the choosable characters, we actually want the stuff now to float around, because we want to have it like next to each other, not below each other. So we basically just say float left, and that of course for every div in there. And I hope I did correctly now. That is more like a little bit testing. And of course this now doesn't work at all, because we have like two giant cards below each other. So assume that we want to have like 5 cards next to each other. We just make it like this. So 20% width, and we have like 2 cards here. And now I just create another one just to give you an idea of how this actually will look like in the long term. And that is basically that we now create a priest, and this goes, oh sorry, that goes of course to the Django thing, 29373, and we of course get rid of this because else it would be called weirdly. So we save this and F5, and we have a priest. So, but of course we want to like have the other things here too, so I guess we can start up with like making a little circle about this. So let's check what SVG circle actually looks like, and there we have our web reference, and that should be basically working. So we put it in the end here just for now, and just press F5, and we have it like this, but we don't want to have it there. So where was it actually placed? It should be a little bit left, a lot more down. So let's put it at 75 and a lot more down, so 300 down. That's better but not quite good, so we put it like 350 down. And not yet perfect, so 75. And now that looks better. Now we get another one, and now we put this. They have a radius of 40, so 80 would be appropriate as a distance. Then they would exactly touch, I guess. So we put like 100 and no, that's just wrong. Let me think. 3, 1, 5, so like this. They should actually touch each other exactly, and we don't want this, so we put 10 more on it, so 6. And they have a little distance, perfect. And then we put in another one that is also 80 plus 80 and then plus 20, because that's like the third one. So it's basically 265. Now it's a little bit off, but still, that is something that we can design later on. But now I want to fill it with another color, because that is basically now intelligence, or it should be intelligence later on, so we put it blue. And the other thing should be swiftness, which is green for now. I'm just saying this. And now we also want to have like the values for this, so we create texts that we put on top of this. So we know that this is like on 75 and 375, so just let's check if that's actually working, if we put like a hard-coded 8 in here. Yeah, that's pretty close. A little bit more left, I guess, so let's just put it on 65, I guess. Yeah, maybe 60 and a little bit more down, so 85 or something like this. So yeah, and just be a little bit perfectionistic right now. Yeah, better. So, and now we only need to vary this. So we knew that we put it like 80 left and 10 as a difference. So when we put 80 on here, it would be like this, and the other 10 should be like this. So that should be the 8 there. And on this 80 plus 20, it's again just to 100, and we have like last number there. But now of course we want to have the actual numbers from the characters, so we actually put this in there. But now we of course don't want to use the name, but rather the in the models given strength, intelligence, and swiftness. So we have basically the strength, the intelligence, intelligence and the swiftness. And now you see the values, and they are actually correct. So if we check back in our form, we have 368, which is completely correct, 555. We have 293, which basically now works. Now we want to actually make this like choosable or something like this. So what we actually want to have like is whenever we hover over such a container, or click it or something like that, if we interact with it. So I will use hover now, but of course for mobile devices hover is not a good thing. So we will just have something else for them, but let's just stick with it for now. And when we then do something like opacity to 1, then it would not change a lot, because its standard opacity is like not is also 1. So but if we put it like opacity to 0.5 for example, then it should like look a little bit different. There you can actually see that this looks pretty neat right now. And also I guess if I move that around a little bit, it scales perfectly. So on a mobile device, of course, I would suggest that we like then have on this size only like 2 cards next to each other or something like this, or even have like tabs, but that is something that we can dynamically do. But still, we have like 1, 2, 3 next to each other, and now I just create 2 more or 3 more dummy cards, which is like dummy 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I create another one, dummy 2, 1, 3, 5, something. And now of course, because 20% times 5 should be 100%, it actually should be all next to each other. And that's the case. So when I now create another one, oh no, let's like call it consistent, at least in this sense, and like some other values, and then we say save. And now we have a new card below that. And we can basically choose one of those. And now of course if we want to click on them, we want to follow either link or do some JavaScript stuff, but for now let's just say we make a href on everything, and that is basically just choose. And then we use again the actual character dot name again, which now if you see on the, I don't know if that's actually working, but for some reason that doesn't work, because that's, yeah, I'm stupid, that's a div, and of course that doesn't work, so we just put it around there, and now we have basically a link around this. And now you can see that this thing changed, and also you can see in the left bottom corner that the link actually changes. And now I can like click on one, and I would say, okay, there is no choose this character function, so just let's add a thing. So now we need to do something that is a little bit more tricky, because now we have basically our parameter here instead of an actual call in the background. So we need to quickly look into Django how this is actually done. So we just look for URL parameter or something like this. Oh, nothing. URL with variable values or something like this. Maybe this. URL dispatcher. Maybe there's something in there. Yeah, there is something in there. So we don't need to have this. We don't need to have this. Looking for something like a text or something like this. Let's use something like this. So we put it now in there, and we call it character name. And that was called choose, so we actually call it the same, choose. And then we go to our views again, and then we say, okay, def choose. And then we now get the request, and of course now we get another parameter that is called the character name. And just for now, let's return an HTTP response. HTTP response, I guess it's called. Yeah. And then we say you choose, and then we put in the actual character name. And let's check if that actually worked. No, it doesn't, because using URL config in this order, but it was not found because we had a slash in the beginning, I guess. Let's check if that's actually the case. If we remove this and press F5, you choose a soldier. So basically that's now the thing. And of course what should happen in the background is that this user actually gets assigned something, some cards. So what we basically now need to create is another class. And the classes in the models are basically just like database tables in some things like this. And we want to have like character. Let's call it living character. And that's also models.model. And this should have like a user, which is a models.foreign key on the user object, which is a Django internal model. So whenever a user logged in or registered, a user object is created, and we link a living character always to a user. And the living character now has basically also a chosen character, which is also a foreign key on the available starting characters. So now we have basically a link. I choose the right naming. A link to the character that the person choose or have chosen. Choose. It's irregular. Yeah, and now we have actually the problem that we have other cards. So let's think about what would happen next. So in the background we need to draw some random cards from the booster pack. So he probably will have some basic action cards. So those action cards are doing stuff on the grid. So let's just go for it and create like a class for this. So that is basically action cards. And those action cards are also models.model, and they have of course a name, which is again char field, which we steal from there. And now we need to actually think about, does it make sense to have one card type which user has, or does he actually have a card? Because the question is that if we want to have dynamics things, so cards that are different, then it actually makes sense that so if the cards can change over time, then they actually should be created in some sense. So we have just an action cards type. But I think that is actually not necessary, because we have a definite set of cards, and this is basically now the action cards, and we don't need to actually care about the category right now, but we just include it for now. And now of course the user should have some action cards, so I move it up here. So what we introduce now is basically action cards, and I don't know if this model now is actually good. I didn't thought it through very carefully, but I just wanted to show you what is possible with Django. So just bear with me for that, even if you already know that this is crap what we're actually building here from a data modeling point of view. But that should now be a models dot many to many or many to one. I don't actually know, many to many relationship, because we have like multiple characters mapping to multiple action cards. So on there we want to have like action cards. And this now says it's not valid. So this takes for some reason 3 arguments and not 2. Maybe it's a one to many actually, because one living character has many many action cards, but I'm not sure. I will read this in a second and then I'll be back. Okay, I'm back, and I found out that I actually need to use the many-to-many field because we have like a lot of living characters which can have a lot of action cards. And they also are like multiple times that a person could actually have this action card. And now we actually need to introduce something that is called like a real user. So because we now are actually handling users, so what we now do is we go to our views again, and we will use my root user to log him in. So I will look up here what we actually want to have, but I guess it is the login and redirect to welcome page, which is this, and there we have like authenticate. And we basically want to have this when we actually have the request login user. Then we actually want to use the authenticate from Django, and there we put in just GP, and as password now, not surprising, GP, and that is basically the user. And I don't know if I need to actually log him in. Yes, I need to. So I know that this user exists, so we just use it like this now. So basically that retrieves the user and that logs the user actually in, and we also put in the request context. And now we basically want to say, okay, this is a login required. So that should actually only work if the user is actually logged in. And we also give it like in login URL, which is basically the standard page where the people or the user should be redirected to if they actually are not logged in. So basically if I press F5 now, I expect that I will be logged out, so basically redirected to the login page. And it's not working because I probably are logged in due to this thing, so I will log out here and press F5 there, and then I'm at the index page again. So let's try to log in actually. So we type in GP and GP, and that does not work because it's an email field. So let's quickly change this to a type text, something like this. That should actually work. So GP and GP, and we log in, and then the request goes, and we are actually logged in and on our login page. On our character choosing page. So when we actually choose a character here, we want to actually call our character choosing, and that or choose, and then we get the character name. So what we actually basically now do is we want to have our available starting characters, but we don't want to have all now. We basically want to get the thing by name, and the name is the character name that was provided. We also need some validation there, of course, in the later on, but that should do the trick for now. And then we have like our character. And now let's quickly create the missing table, missing tables, which is done by migrate, and then we have like the registration action cards and the registration living characters created. And now we actually can do something like creating new things. So what we basically want to do now when we look at the models is we want to create a living character when actually we have chosen a character. So we want to create a living character, and that is my character for now. And that is of course created with the user, because the user is logged in. We have him on the request, and we also need, I guess if I remember correctly, we need a user and we need the chosen character. And the chosen character will be the character which the person clicked on. And now we basically save them. And of course that's not enough basically, because now we have only a living character. But on this living character, I guess we can now action cards, and there we can now, I guess, add something in some way. Let me quickly check how this is done. I think you can somehow put stuff in there now, but I'm not quite sure how this actually works, so I will need to look that up, and then I'm back in a second. Okay, I'm back, and I'm not sure if this is the correct one with just using add, but anyway, let's comment this out for now, because we need to make one step before that. So we go back to our admin overview and we register the actual other boss models, which is the action cards and the living characters. We actually need some action cards before we actually can create a character, so I just registered them, and now I should be able to, for some reason not, I forgot to run the server again. So if I press F5 here and I'm in the admin view again and I log in again there, then I can see the other models, which is basically now the action cards. And now we just create some action card that says, okay, it's category movement, and it says it's up, and we say save. And then we create another action card that says down, and that can be probably renamed in south and north later on, but that is also category moving. And then let's shortly look what we have, so that we have like another card that is like usable, and that is search on grid. So let's just add some card that is called like searching forage for herbs, and we save this. And of course now we have the problem that we can't refer to them really easily because they don't have an ID or something like that. So basically we want to group them later on before we actually use them, but for now let's like do this in a very crappy way, so that we actually have something that works. So what we now do is basically we want to link those things. We want to link those things, I guess, only once for now, but let's try what happens if we link them multiple times. So if we now use our action cards dot objects dot get, and then we get it by name, which was up and which was down, a down and a up, and now we put those to our character, which is a up and a down, and we now basically save our character again, I guess. Save it again, and then we've basically also make a request context, and then we make another thing, another return to response. There we say our main page, because that is like the page where the user will be all the time. And then we do, in the request context, we put in the actual living character, which is now of course the my character. And now we need to create such a main page HTML thing. And what we now want to do there is we just want to list stuff for now. So that is basically just the thing that we want to have here, and we called it living characters. So just let's put it there and check if that's actually working. So we want to choose immersion for now. And now it says int argument must be a string or number, not simple lazy object. And I don't really know what this means, so let me check this, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I'm back. I had one error, and that was like assigning the user here as a keyword argument, and not just a parameter as the first argument. So now when I actually look here, I have a living character object, and on that thing I would have action cards. So let's look into it, what actually is served under this thing. So F5, and there we have action cards dot none. So let's just go for all of those. And that of course doesn't work, but probably this works. So we basically have all our action cards there. And there we can now do something like I did before. So let's just make a for loop, each card for card in all the cards. We just loop over them. And for, and let's just steal the same thing from before. So we basically get all of this and put it on our main on our main page. Whoop. And that of course now is not the perfect way to represent this, but just so you know that it actually should work. So using this and putting this there. Now we say available cards, and we basically can get rid of this. And now we of course don't have a name or a simple name, I guess, because we basically now have like but we also have a name and a category. So we basically go to this thing again, we get rid of all those bubbles down there. We say now that is not a name, but it is a category, and behind that we have a name, and we just represent this like this now. And of course that could be done better in the future. And I guess it was name, right? So name and category, exactly. And when we go now here and press F5, then we will have two empty things. Yeah, because this is now not a character, but rather a card. And also we can then change the image, of course, dynamically, and movement up and movement down. And of course we don't have the available cards right here, so we put it like this. And then we have them next to each other again, and they are highlighted now, which doesn't really make sense. And they also have like a link to them, which doesn't make a lot of sense right now because we want to just show them. But anyway, that's basically just the thing that I wanted to show. And now the question is really, what happens if we would add multiple times the card up, for example? Because basically that's the thing that I want to try now before, but for that we actually need to log out ourselves. So I try to log out here and check if I'm logged out here too. Yes, that works. So now it can actually fail, I guess, because we already have some things in the database, so, and we don't have like error messages. So let's check that we choose a merchant again, and now we are also here. So that basically didn't work. So we added this multiple times, but still we are just ending up with 2 cars. But so we need to actually change this, because we actually want to have the give the user the ability to have like multiple times the same card. So we basically go in our models. Now we think that a living character should actually have one to many many to one, so many to one relation or field, I guess. I don't really know, but that is basically something that one could figure out later on. So let me just go back to the thing I wanted to have, many to many fields, because I don't really know. I guess the problem is that we don't have the action card multiple times in, so we don't have like a real multiple times thingy in there, and therefore we actually can't choose them. But that is something that I will find out and then actually fix. But basically what we build now is when we actually log out, and we do one more thing actually before I finish this off now, is when I log in and I'm already logged in. So basically we say if check logged in user request, if this user is already logged in, I want to do stuff, and if he's not logged in, then I want to actually go to the character choosing. But if he's already logged in, I want to redirect him to the actual choose page. No, not the choose page, but rather to the main page. And that is now a little bit difficult because I have like this functionality like put into 2 steps. So what I actually want to have is I want to have another function that says my main page, which is also like login required, of course, because I only should get there if I'm logged in. And then I have a request, of course, and then it says living character again. But now I don't want to actually create one, but rather get one by the given user, because it should actually exist if I'm at this point. And I also need a request context, and I need a redirect now for this, so we call it main page for now. So if I'm logged in, I want to get to the main page, and after the choosing and the actual data setup, I want to also be redirected to the main page. So we need to set up the main page as the last step here, main page, and then we just go for it like this, and we say that we want to use main page as a handler here. And basically that should not work, but I don't remember actually why. There is something missing, so we get rid of this. And yeah, let's try it out now. So we are logged in, and now it says main page view does not exist. Character choosing views main page. Now let me look at this error message again. Registration views main page, because I called it my main page. So let's just rename this, and then it should be fine. And then I log in, and because I already choose a character, I should actually end up at another place. So let's check why this actually didn't work. So of course the login user logs me in here. So when I actually call this and I'm not logged in, then I actually want not this but another logic, because the login user should actually only log in myself. But after I'm logged in, I want to check if I'm actually having already a character. So basically we need to make an if switch between those both passes. So we basically check with living character. After that we check is this user actually having a character already, and therefore we basically already use also use objects, I guess, dot filter, and then we don't care about the chosen character or whatever, and we call exists in the end. So basically we want to check if I already have a character. I should not end up at this thing. If the user exists, I would be redirected, sorry, and else I would go to the character choosing. And also on the landing page, if I'm already logged in, I go to the main page, else I got to the index page and can actually authenticate myself. And actually now that should work. If I press F5, we are already logged in, so oh no, we are not having this, so I go to the main page and now it says /main page not found. And now you probably think I'm stupid because I don't saw that early on. And that says now get return one more than living character, because of course now we created multiple times this stuff. So just let it make the quick fix, because we're using SQLite 3, which is a like in file database. We just get rid of this, and then say migrate, which creates basically everything all over again. And that was now a little bit stupid, because now I'm also don't have any character cards anymore. But anyway, just give me a second to set this up again and then I'll be back. Okay, so I just sparsely set it up again. So when we actually now log in, which of course now this fails because it tries to direct me to the main page, but I didn't create anything yet, so, and I was logged in here. So if I log out again and I press F5, then I will be redirected. And now we actually log in, and it should actually check, oh, we don't have any living characters. So we go to the character choosing, and we only have one character now for the sake of simplicity. And if I click it, then I will be redirected to the main page, and then I actually have my two cards here. And if I now go to the index page, I will be automatically redirected. So I will try to log out again, because I was logged in. And then I will try to log in again. And now I should actually end up directly on my home page. So basically what we build is I can log in, not register right now, but that is just another half an hour to do. And when I log in, I can choose one of my characters, and I get a bunch of cards which I currently just can hover over and which have little cute kittens on them. So basically that should be it for now, and now I would actually think about what kind of data structures we need to set up so that we have like, oops, that is a wrong project, some more models, and how we actually want to implement all of this. But that should be giving you a very rough idea of how and what is actually possible. And of course that is now very crappy and also right now very sparsely designed, but I hope you find it enjoyable and I hope you will like it. So see you.